Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Interesting Modelling Company, the midweek one, as we like to call it. And on no further ado, I'm delighted to say that we're joined tonight by Ivan Jensen-Taylor, who is one of the most ridiculously talented modelers out there, who just makes you green with envy, really. But Ivan, it's lovely to have you on. I'm sorry we were going to have you on a couple of times, and things happened. So we're delighted to have you on tonight. So how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on. You must be describing someone else because that's not me.
No, trust me. Apart from the fact that we've obviously got kind of like workshop envy wars going on here, it's that yours is a beautiful kind of example of organization. Mine, on the other hand, as we were saying before we go live, it's a little bit organized, but what I tend to do is start putting things where muscle memory has them within reach. So it's like, I need masking tape. There it is, masking tape, and it's, yeah, but it looks fabulous, actually.
It might look nice now. That's only because it's on camera. You should see it when I'm mid-project. It's terrible.
It's yours probably suffers from mine and what other people do, which is when you get that weird kind of like space-time anomaly whereby at least 12 square inches of your workbench suddenly takes on a huge gravitational mass, and everything starts kind of like piling up around it, the event horizon of the small area you're trying to work on.
Absolutely, just a mound of product. Instead of putting it back on the shelf, it just goes there.
See, I try to do that now, and I try to have the Spencer Pollard mindset of only bringing the things down that I need, or actually getting them down beforehand so that they're all in front of me. Because I'm the same as after about half an hour, and I suddenly look around and I think, why is all this stuff on my workbench? I'm not using it.
As much as I'd like to try that, I could never do it. Because I might want to use something. You never know.
Do you know what? It was so much easier back in the old days, back in the day, when I literally only had about 6 Humbrol paints and a bottle of Humbrol liquid poly. And then I suddenly started getting a bit smarty, a bit fancy pantsy, and I thought, oh, I'll start having gear.
That's the problem. We're spoiled these days. We have far too much choice, and we like to buy them all.
I will say we'll come to that in a minute later on in the show, because one of the things that's we kind of like I pinged to a couple of people today is yet again, ladies and gentlemen, I have to inform you, I found out today that the hobby has indeed died again. Obviously, its demise happened in 1980, 1982, 83, 84, 85, 86, so all the way through the 90s, early 20th century. But I'm afraid, yet again, I found out today the hobby has died. So, yeah, exactly.
It's just tragic.
It's tragic, and and we'll discuss its demise amidst probably its demise was amidst an avalanche of stuff that we couldn't keep up with. So anyway, we've like I say, we've got Ivan on tonight. Ivan, we're going to talk a bit about your history and your approach to the hobby, and also talk about some of your models as well, which you've rather kindly going to share with us tonight. But long story short, how did you get started in the hobby, and roughly about what age?
So for me, getting involved with this hobby properly was about 2015. I'm a PC gamer. I love gaming, things like that. And there's a lot of war games like War Thunder where you can play tanks and planes and all sorts of things like that. I was like, oh, they're cool. And by doing that, I'd get to know a lot about the vehicles and the specifications and manufacturers and all that stuff. And my mum was always like, oh, you're always glued to that game. You're always glued to the computer. Why don't you do something productive? And as a kid, I was like Lego, things like that. When I was younger, I was always making stuff. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, yeah, when my mum was when I was young, my mum would buy me these little Airfix kits, little like Spitfires and things before they were new tooled. And I really enjoyed putting them together. And I didn't really care if they looked good, because I would make something that looked like something. And I enjoyed it. So in 2015, I got back into it thinking, yeah, you know what, maybe I should build something. So I went to Hobbycraft, and I found this Tamiya 135th Tiger one. Completely daunting to me. I was like, oh, this is big. This is a lot bigger than things I've built before. Looked in the box, because you could just go into the shop and lift the lid and, oh, there's all this stuff. and it looks quite simple. My mum bought it me, and I tried to put it together with PVA glue because I had absolutely no idea what liquid glue was for plastic and things like that. I just stapled the tracks together because they were rubber band tracks, but I loved it. And then ever since then, I built more and more. When I was approved for a credit card, I was like, "Oh, let's go spending." Bought one of those cheap £100 compressors with airbrushes, the bundle thing, and then ever since just got more and more invested in it and enjoyed it ever since.
I think because we're going to see some of your models this evening, and I think for somebody who has kind of re-entered the hobby in 2015 to be knocking out stuff that you're doing at the moment I think it's a combination of probably a staggering learning curve and just an enviable amount of raw talent, I think is the best way of putting it. If you don't mind, we're going to put you on the spot, Ivan. How old are you?
24.
That's all for tonight, everybody. Good night. It's so 2015, so that's 6 years ago. So you would have been in your late teens.
Yeah.
How do you describe that learning curve?
I hate being bad at anything. I think everyone does. And when because I grew up obviously with social media, that's just a normal thing for me. I was on all these modeling groups and I was seeing work from these guys who were amazing, tanks, aircraft, and I was like, I would love to do that. So how can I get to doing what they do as quick as possible and not waste time or resources? So it was just like good materials. So like the FAQ for aircraft by Danny Zamobide. He's like, for me, best aircraft modeler there is around. So I bought that book, studied it like crazy. And it's picking the right things to learn from for me, which is an important thing. There's a lot of misinformation on Facebook. So it's just trying to work out for myself as well who to listen to. Because you listen to everyone, you get a billion different answers, and you're right back to square one. You don't know what you're doing. So it was pick and choosing and trying for myself what techniques and things I could do, and just found out what worked for me, really. For me, I'm still not where I want to be. I've got a long way to go. But I'm kind of happy at the minute where I'm going.
Well, you see, I've got some good news and some bad news for you, Ivan. You see, I've checked. Yeah, studio. He's 30 years younger than me. Are we going to have him on again? Really? Let me tell you that when you get to my age, and my sincere condolences, but when you get to my age, you'll still be wanting to try new things out. You'll still be wanting to experiment. To almost every time I sit down and build things, for me it's still a fresh and a new hobby. And I know we were talking just before the show about new stuff, and I've got these mixed shaders to try out at some stage, and the dry brush pigments, and figure painting. Still trying to get on with figure painting, but yeah, you slightly have the advantage. I wouldn't call it advantage, but you've come into it at a time when there was a seismic shift in finishing technique. You see, I've still dragged with me the baggage of how I've done things for the last 40 years. That's not an excuse. There's you have an aptitude and a talent. But to some extent, I absolutely envy you for the fact that you have come into this hobby at a time. Frankly, I wish I could come into it again. And learn, as you say, learn from the best people out there. The Mig Jimenezes, the Danis, the Adam Wilders, the Martin Kovacs. We'll look at some of your models, but I'm genuine when I say, some of the work, he says, all of the work that we've got here tonight is just, it's utterly staggering. We'll start off with, what should we start off with? We'll start off with, this was one of the ones you were doing. I remember you building last year in lockdown.
Yeah, I love that build. Yeah, that one's a special one for me because that's my first full interior kit. I love that build, and that was one where I studied those FAQ books, the diorama book, then I did the winter edition. I was like, right, because when I was a couple of years ago, I never ever saw the appeal of doing winter scenes or dioramas. I was like, for me, they're boring.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a bit more knowledge and understanding, I was like, yeah, actually, there's a lot more work than just white. There's a lot to go on. And yeah, for this one was just, as soon as I started building this kit, I had that vision in mind of what I wanted. I wanted a muddy road. I wanted a tree on there somehow of some kind. It all kind of just worked out. The only thing I'm not so happy with maybe is the mud effects on the tank, and the road is a little flat. I'd rather there be more texture and stuff in the road. But apart from that, I do love this build. And that mini art kit is outstanding. It is such a good kit.
What is the vehicle?
It's the Mini Art T60 Bergpanzer. So right. It's obviously Russian tank chassis, but the German captured and little recovery vehicle. It is really, really good kit.
Mini Art. It's a company I'm not familiar with. Yeah. I mean, that is just absolutely fabulous. Had you done much vignette or diorama work before you did this one?
Before this one, I did a very, very simple flat scene for the Tamiya Panzer II. That was just a flat bit of desert. But apart from that, no, this was my first proper scratch built from nothing little vignette. For a long time, I wanted to add figures. I was just not at that stage yet where I was like, yeah, I don't want to ruin what I think is already quite nice with a very bad looking figure, because that could just destroy the scene. So I'll just leave it as it is and appreciate it for what it is.
I see. To me, the way you've the mud, the groundwork, and everything, it just blends seamlessly. And the thing I like, it's a. That's a problem. You see, I put my foot in it on Sunday with car modelers. So might as well upset the armor modelers now. But it's almost like an incidental detail, but it's one that the one that really kind of stands out and just adds to the like the vignette or the diorama is how you've just got that little corner with the slope on it. It's not an entirely flat level base. You've just added that little thing there, which immediately says to you that this is a road. It starts filling in the landscape around the model and telling a story. Does that make sense?
That became a bad habit of mine, because I realized 3 vignettes later I was copying the exact same pattern, a hill in one corner and a slope in the other, and I was like, yes, I've done this 3 times in a row and I've not even realized.
It's no bad thing though, because I think anything that's completely flat, it doesn't draw your eye into the scene, if you see what I mean. That makes sense?
Yeah, I do. I do seem to have a thing, not against flat scenes, but I do think there needs to be some sort of terraforming going on.
Yeah, absolutely. What can you describe the painting and weathering process you used on that little Bergpanzer? Yeah,
so it was one of my first times trying the AK Real Colors, the lacquers. I absolutely love those paints. They're one of my favorite paints. With this, I wanted to very heavily modulate it. So I did. Extreme modulation I did on this, but then obviously after a clear coat, after pin washes, oil effects, it's insane how much that gets toned down. So that was a bit of a learning lesson for like do it even more extreme, because after so many layers, it gets toned down a lot, so it ends up just looking a bit like a faded yellow.
Yes.
But yeah, that's all lacquers. Again, really like those paints. Really thin, low pressure. And because it's a small model, didn't take up too much paint either, because it's a thick paint that you can thin down quite a lot, so you don't have to use very much of it. But yeah, it's a fun little model, and yeah, it's nice to see it rather than in the usual green. I was like, yeah, let's do something with Dunkel Gelb on it.
No, that is like I say, that is just absolutely fabulous. And I remember from lockdown last year watching you working your way through this, and I was thinking, well, I really want to see how this turns out, because this is, I was building something in similar color at the time. I was building like little Tamiya Panzer II, So I'm always I'm always ready to change course. If I see something that somebody's doing and I like the effect they're getting, I'm always ready to change course. But yeah, I know what you mean about those interior kits, and we've spoken about these before. In as much as that, as much as on this Tamiya Panzer IV, I nearly went as far as really weathering the gun on it, and then realised that I wasn't going to see anything on there. I am much more of a fan of curbside tank models, but at some stage, I am going to have to go down that rabbit hole of building a mini art kit with a full interior, even though I'm going to be spending time doing stuff that largely won't be seen on the finished model, possibly, but it will be forever recorded in photographs and mementos. And it's sometimes it's the actual process. It's going through that whole thing of doing the painting and the weathering and recreating that kind of wear and tear. The end result is almost largely immaterial. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And like I say, and if you can photograph it and record it, then you do have you do actually have a memento of it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to build one of those mini art interior kits, and I get the feeling it's going to be either a Lee or a Grant.
I was looking at them the other day as well. I was going to buy one, but look, I've just recently picked up like God knows how many Ryfield interior kits, and God knows how long they're going to take. But tell us about the Ryfield models you've picked up, because I have yet to actually build any of their stuff. So I've just got wrapped up in my headphone cable here. But let's just have a run through on the Ryfield stuff that you bought recently. So I picked up the new Panther F, the Panzer IV full interior, and the new Tiger 1 North Africa. That's full interior as well. Got those little Ryfield upgrade sets with them that come with 3D printed parts and a bit of PE. I say a bit of PE, quite a lot of PE. They look absolutely amazing. I've never actually built one, so I might be into a surprise, and I might be selling them all in a few weeks. But I've got a lot of plans for them, but I've not seen plastic molded better than what Ryfield do. Only time I've ever seen is either Wing Up Wings. The molding is so fine and so crisp and so detailed and sharp, and the sprue gates are very small on the tiny parts. They're just well placed, and there's not ejector pin marks in bad locations. So on paper, they go together amazing, but I'm yet to put that in practice. But I've got so much planned for my interior kits. But again, you get all that interior, you pay the price for it. Luckily,
I was going to say,
most of the time they do a curbside version.
Yeah, on average, what was the kind of like roundabout cost of, say, one of those individual kits?
About ballpark about 60 quid on average for a full interior Ryfield model kit.
Now, this is we'll kind of go on a little detour now. We've kind of like a bit like me and my driving. I kind of like sometimes I think, we'll just go down this side road now. I think come up today, discussion today about, we were being a little bit facetious at the beginning of the show saying the hobby's dying, but it's one of those things that yet again, the hobby is dying apparently. And people talking about the cost of kits and admittedly the high price these days of some kits, but we seem to have reached a kind of like not an impasse, but for years modelers have been saying, or the enthusiast end of the market has been saying, oh, we want more detail, we want kits to be better, we want them to be more detailed, we want this, we want that. I don't want to have to go out and buy accessories. I want it all in the box. Well, you can have that, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah,
it is going to cost you money. And by the same token is when manufacturers do recognize that they need to keep things in the kind of affordable end of the market, modelers complain that, oh, this kit, it looks like it's been designed down to a price. Well, it's kind of like, what do you want? Do you want the kits to be cheap, or do you want them to be massively super molded? because unfortunately, what you can't have is tack on levels of detail at kind of Matchbox prices.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair?
I do. It's weird for the past month or so, basically since I saw the release of the Airfix Vulcan. All I've seen people like, what a ridiculous price tag. You might as well go and get the one from the 1970s. It's like, you know what? You go ahead and do that, but you're not going to get all the Bombay and the interior cockpit and recessed panel lines and that. But if you want to go and spend like 20 quid on that kit that's from the 70s, go ahead. That is completely up to you. But they're trying to, it really annoys me, this one, dissuade people from buying a new kit. It's like, well, if you don't want it, you don't buy it. That's fine. That's completely up to you. Let people enjoy things. Let people have nice new things if they want them. And it seems to be Airfix who get this a lot. With the new Mozzie that's coming out, people saying, "Oh, that's a bit expensive for a 72 kit." Again, just don't buy it then. Simple. Everyone's happy.
I think I've said this before in the op-eds that I do for Model Airplane International, and I've probably said it on this show a bazillion times before, and that's when you get people saying, I'd love to have this kit, but I can't afford it. And my response to that is always, well, how much do you spend on your hobby throughout the year? How much do you spend on kits that actually just end up being loft insulation? So rather than, my sincere advice is, if, say, like the Tamiya Phantom, which is coming out, and people saying, I'd really like one of those, but I can't afford it. Are you spending the equivalent of that kit throughout the year on your hobby? If the answer is yes, then you can afford it.
Yeah.
Whether you want to invest such a large sum into a single kit, well, that's an entirely personal, that's an entirely subjective decision. But strictly speaking, you can afford it.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I mean, we're saying, 21 quid for a 72nd scale kit is expensive. I can remember, and this is where we do the wibbly wobbly kind of time travel thing. 1987. You'll remember that year well, Ivan. I know. Yes. 1987, and I started my first job, and I went into Beatties into Bristol, where I was either served by Tim Perry or Andy Farmer, one or the other. I didn't know them at the time, but it would have been Andy actually. I decided to invest £7.99, right, in a Fujimi 72nd scale FG Phantom, British Phantom. Now at the time, on average, I think Airfix Series 1 kits were about £1.75, and that was kind of like, that's as much as I had ever invested in a single model. So here I am with money burning a hole in my pocket, hightail it into Beatties in Bristol, and I blow £7.99 on a single kit. And I then have to go and have a lie down, a cup of tea and a biscuit afterwards, because it was just like, what have I done? You can laugh at it now, but at the time it felt, this is madness. I've invested what felt like a huge sum into a single kit. But relatively speaking, £7.99 in 1987 for a 76 scale kit, that was a lot of money, But I come back to this thing that, the idea that somehow this hobby is pricing itself out of, shall we say, the younger or the inexperienced end of the market, I would argue is untrue, because there are still hundreds and hundreds of kits out there that are within that price bracket. Nobody is going to start out on this hobby and immediately start trying to build a Tamiya Tomcat,
Yeah.
And like I say, because you've recently invested in, I think it's fair to say these are high-end kits.
Yeah.
What are your, what's your opinion about, cost, or indeed how that cost gets kind of like aggregated against the time you spend building things?
Yeah. So, for example, I'll use the big Trumpeter 1/200th Titanic. Everyone were crying out, we need a big Titanic. They release one and then complaining that it's like £300. It's like, yeah, but for a ship of that size, that much plastic, it's got a lighting kit in it and it's got photo etch in it. If I was to, and you did this the other day, divide the price I've spent on it by how long I'm going to spend on that kit, it's going to be like £1 a day. Or the way I build stuff, it's like 10p a day. That's going to take years to build. It's a kit is worth what you think it's worth. So I was like on Facebook, I've got this kit. Is it worth this? Or I've seen this advertised. It's worth what you're willing to pay for it. At the end of the day, it's plastic. And if you think it's worth that and what you're going to get out of it's worth it, buy it. If not, don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was just playing catch up with the comments here. You know, it's you know, I come from a background of, you know, when I was growing up, get the violins out here. When I was growing up, money was tight. So modeling, you know, modeling really was it was a luxury my family couldn't afford. So on the occasions that I, you know, I did get a kit, I did get a model. It was something that I absolutely cherish. But even then, you know, I was walking into the local toy shop and seeing Tamiya armor and thinking, oh, you know, it's there, but it's just out of reach. I can't afford that. For me, it's going to have to be a Novo 25p Spitfire. But, you know, it's that affordable end of things is still out there. Like I say, people aren't going to jump into this hobby and immediately start, you know, they're not going to immediately start wanting to build a tack-on Panther with a full interior. And likewise, they're not going to immediately go, right, well, I need, you know, all the big paints, and I need this, I need, you know, fillers, I need, you know, a punch and die set, you know, it's all these kind of things. And in fact, this is one of the things I did have a word with Spencer and Drew about this today. And I said, I'm starting to get the feeling that I need to do something like the £20 kits challenge, whereby I have 20 quid and I have to buy a model and the tools and the paints and everything for 20 quid or £25, something like that, you know? Because honestly, it's try model railways. If you want expensive, I remember this from 2 years ago was I bought a copy of Railway Model. I hadn't read it in decades, centuries even. And I thought, this is going to be fun. And I kind of sat down and I'm like, it was just, you know, £100 for a brake wagon or something, you know. And okay, this is the high end stuff. This is the really super detailed stuff by the bespoke manufacturers. But you know, it's no different. It's no different to our hobby, really.
Yeah.
You can go out and get a Ryfield Panther for, you know, 60 quid with a full interior. You can still go out and buy the old Tamiya one for about 20 quid. It's not very accurate, but I tell you what, it builds together very quick. It builds together easily, cheaply, quickly, and it's great fun.
It is. It's fun, and that's the most important part. Enjoying it.
Yeah.
When you enjoy it, it doesn't really matter how much money you spend on it.
No, precisely. Let's delve into another one of something else from your portfolio here. Well, that was a good pun. Dive in. I didn't realise I'm much smarter than Dudley ever lets me know. Well, this is a Stuka. What kit is this, and when did you build this?
This is the Italeri 148 Stuka. This was in the Battle of Britain anniversary boxing. This was built for Sammy. Not a good kit. Not a fan of it, to be honest. There's few issues I found with it, but once it's built, it builds up really nice. It's actually everyone's a general after the battle. After I finished it, I loved the kit. Just whilst I was building it, I was like, oh, I don't like this, don't like that, don't like that. But you know what? It's actually quite a nice 148 Stuka. I think the Earthix one is much better, but it's a big. But with this one, you get like, you know, the full engine. It's nice. It's a 148 Stuka. Who doesn't like them? And this was quite experimental for me because I wanted to be quite extreme with the contrast. So as you can see, each panel on the wing is a slightly different shade, and I wanted to go with that more Spanish style of modeling because to me that's my favorite style. So I wanted to go a bit more extreme with how I did everything. although I didn't find the kit all that fantastic, it's one of my best finishes on a model. Only problem is that front canopy somehow fogged after I'd completed the model.
What did you use to glue it on? Super glue or?
So the canopy section, luckily, is part of the body frame as well. I glued that on with Tet at the bottom.
Right.
Masked it all up. It was fine. Unmasked it. It was fine. I think, I don't know. I don't think enamel thinner should do that to clear parts. I'm not sure. I used quite a lot of it on this model, but yeah, just that front part seemed to cloud and fog afterwards. But apart from that, I really like it.
No, it looks terrific. It's, I mean, I always think to myself, oh, I haven't built that many Stukas, and then I kind of look back and I think, actually, I built a shed load of them. And you know, it's just one of those airplanes that its appearance. We can say that the 109 is a nice looking aeroplane, especially the later versions. We can say that the FW 190 again, the later version, is a nice looking airplane. Stuka always kind of like sums up its purpose and its politics. Really, it is utterly ugly from every angle you look at. But no, that's fantastic. That is. And what year did you build this?
Last year. No,
last year.
It was. I think it was January this year.
January this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I'm losing track of time. Yeah, it was January this year. Yeah.
Right. And do you find yourself jumping between aircraft and tanks, or do you kind of like have a? You kind of, do you sometimes think, I've got my eye in with that, I'm going to build a few more along that, a few more similar?
It tends to alternate. At the minute, I'm on the armour. No aircraft at the minute is piquing my interest. It'll come along eventually, but it really just is a flip and flop between, depending on what mood I'm in, really, and what subject takes my fancy at the time. But it's aircraft and armour, really. I've got a few cars in stash, I've got ships in the stash, but aircraft and armour, and it all tends to be World War II. That's my niche. Yeah.
No, I'm at the moment, I'm kind of like going through a thing of, it's mostly been armor at the moment with this Sylvester Hurricane, but I do on the better days, I do like suddenly jumping from one subject to another, because it just keeps it fresh and it keeps me on my toes, and you don't feel like you're falling into a rut whereby, even if I've got to build several armor vehicles in a row, I'll change the finishing techniques between them.
Yeah.
So one might be really kind of heavily worn and chipped, the next one less so. And one of the things I keep wanting to try out at some stage is that kind of zenithal lighting thing, which will kind of like, we see, as you say, it's that very Spanish technique, because I've seen Mig Jimenez do it quite a bit, and he did it on a BT7, whereby when you actually look at the base model, you think, well, that just looks wrong. It looks like a cartoon. By the time he's put everything on top of it, all the other thing, you think that looks amazing.
Yeah. So I always see people do it all over on Facebook pages. People will post up a picture just after they've zenithal or modulated, and people are like, how ridiculous that looks, so unrealistic. Then they'll put a picture of the finished model and like, that's really good. It's like, oh, well, you were saying before how bad it looked. Just give it time, because it will look amazing at the end. It just looks quite extreme in the early stages.
But, pre-shading's the same. It's, that can look absolutely horrific right up until you put that final kind of blending coat in, and then it just kind of ties it all together. We've got another. We'll go to another one of your armor models here. And this is 48 scale, if I'm right, is it, or 35th? 35th.
Yes, the ICM V3000S in North Africa, guys. Amazing. Love that build. It weighs a ton because of the resin in the back. That's all 3D printed. Yeah, it weighs very heavy. But yeah, again, I never saw the appeal of desert or North Africa scenes. And then again, I was like, yeah, let's do one. And then I've really started to appreciate them and how well they can look when someone does it properly. So I thought I'll have a go at that. Mine is all right. It looks deserty. Looks maybe like North Africa. If anything, it looks more like Italy, I think. But I really enjoyed that build. The truck came out pretty much exactly how I wanted it to. Dusty, but not battered. There's no chipping on it. It's wear and tear from the environment. They're trying to flee North Africa. Yeah, really, really enjoyed that build. About 2 month build, that one.
I remember watching you building this one, and I was certainly intrigued by your 3D printing that you were doing on this.
Don't like 3D printing. Well, I didn't then. I just could not get to grips with it. Don't matter how many times I leveled it or cleaned it, or things kept failing. I've got it now. It was just a case of increase my exposure time. Who knew it was something so simple? But yeah, all that I should have hollowed all that resin, but it's not. It's all solid resin. That's why it weighs so much. But it was fun to do. Oh, granted, they are American barrels, not German barrels, but we won't tell anyone.
That doesn't matter. A barrel is a barrel. You know it. They're not going to be overly fussy on that one. And were those the AK paints on that as well?
Yes, AK real color for the base coat and camouflage. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What airbrush?
Yeah, what airbrush are you using for that?
At the time, I was using the iWater HPC Plus.
Right.
And now I'm using, I don't even know its name. It's the Mr. Hobby Procon. Let me grab it. I've got it right here. Actually.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
The PS770 with the little Mac valve on the front. That's my go-to at the minute.
So when you kind of like came back into modelling round about 2015, what was the first airbrush that you, if you pardon the pun, gravitated towards?
First airbrush after the really cheap ones that came with the compressor was the Harder and Steenbeck CR Plus, the one with the red handle at the back, the Infinity.
Right.
It was that one. It was the 2-in-1 where I could change the cap and the needle. Really nice airbrush. At the time, I used acrylics, and I would constantly have to strip it and clean it because I didn't know lacquers existed back then. But thinking back, if I was using that airbrush now, I'd probably never have to strip it because I use lacquers pretty much all the time, and I've never had issue with lacquer. That's an amazing paint.
No, I'm the same. Is that I've got an airbrush here, which is this. Oh, it's like a Badger clone that I bought about 21 years ago, and it was a brilliant airbrush, absolutely bomb-proof. Probably one of the best airbrushes I ever bought. It was about 20 quid, but eventually over time it just started kind of giving up on me, and so I had to retire it. And over the years, I've bought more airbrushes. But since I started, more and more using lacquer paints or acrylics, but hot acrylics, but thinning them with lacquer thinner, is I went back to that airbrush and I soaked everything in lacquer thinner and gave it a really good clean. It works again. It's back. Yeah, boy, I wish I'd started using lacquer thinner and hot acrylics years ago, because it does make all the difference, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It really does.
I mean, just even I've got my airbrushes here. Is that when I've done a session with them, what I tend to do is just blast them through with some cleaner, take the needle out, give it a wipe, pop it back in, put some more lacquer thinner in there, blast it through, and then just leave it in the holder with some lacquer thinner in there, and that's it. Next time I come around to using it, it's good to go. It's it's
just amazing.
We'll jump to another airplane now, and well. I'm guessing this is the special hobby kit, isn't it?
It is.
In 30-second scale.
Yeah, that's the one. The Mark V High Tech 2, to be specific. The kit that people told me I wasn't skilled enough to build, which is all the reason I built it.
No, absolutely. So when did you build this one? 2016. Oh. So you've only been back for just over a year, and then you decided to show the rest of us up by banging out something as exquisite as this.
There's a lot of work in this kit. A kit I'll never ever get rid of. I love it. I think the Tempest Mark V is just an absolutely gorgeous aircraft. I think it's so much better looking than the Typhoon. I know there's a few differences, but it's such a pretty aircraft. That beauty came at a price. This kit does not go together easy. There's just so much work that goes into it, but it's worth it. It's all worth the battle in the end. It's why I've got another 3 in the stash.
So how much of this was built out of the box, and how much of this did you kind of add extras to it?
So everything there is from the box, because it's the High-Tech 2 version. So it comes with the half engine, resin blast tubes, resin wheels, and the only thing I did add was a full paint mask set. There's no decals on this model. So apart from the stencils, obviously, I'm not painting that one, but everything else is painted on.
Right, so let's just clarify for everybody out there, you've been back in the hobby for about a year and you're already painting your own markings on.
Oh, yeah. It's the whole reason I bought a silhouette cut. I just paint, if I can, I will always paint markings on. Love them.
Well, as somebody who actually designs decals, I obviously have to take an issue with all that hard work. No, I'm joking. I mean, I'm genuinely kind of speechless here. That that 1 year into your kind of reintroduction, you have thrown yourself into so many kind of advanced techniques and absolutely nailed them.
Well, thank you. Obviously looking at this model now, I can see so many things I would do differently. But obviously, I think everyone will do that with their models. It's just what people do. But yes, it's absolutely still one of my favorites. It's on top of my display case. That's going nowhere. I absolutely love this model.
And did you mask the hard edges for the camo on that one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was all a lot of Tamiya tape was used over that couple of days. That's all the Tamiya acrylics. Mm-hmm. The dark green 2, dark ocean grey 2, and all Tamiya on that model. Brilliant.
Yeah, see, I like their camouflage colors, those RAF camouflage colors. I know that some people don't, but again, it's, to me, that green has just the right kind of olivey kind of warmness to it.
Yeah.
And the ocean grey, perhaps I shouldn't be liking bluish ocean greys, but I do.
Yeah, so I love it because it's quite blue. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like Panzer Grey. People say Panzer Grey shouldn't be blue. Yeah, I know, but I kind of like bluish kind of Panzer Grey. Sorry, but that is just fabulous. I mean, yeah, I can tell you there are people with decades worth of experience who would be pleased to make something like that. I mean, that is, as I say, it's a staggering learning curve, but that learning curve, is only apparent because you just have that knack, you have that skill. It's jealous or what?
Thank you.
Well, no, honestly, Ivan, it is because to kind of go back to what we're talking about, the death of the hobby, RIP. You're part of that generation that we're always being told there's nobody coming through to make models now.
Yeah.
But there are,
Yeah.
Mig is part of a generation that we're told didn't exist. Adam Wilder is, Martin is, you are, and it's this is the thing that I whenever I hear the death of the hobby is being announced again, I think, well, no, we're getting new people coming through, and we're getting new people coming through who are now having a revolutionary influence on the hobby. I mean, I'm thinking to 10 years ago when I watched that. Have you ever seen that the video Mig did, which is painting and weathering with acrylics? It's a DVD. He builds a 24 scale Panzer II.
No.
Worth googling and getting, because at the time there were so many things there. Because I was stuck in my Verlinden way of kind of like wash, dry brush. That was it. That was my methods. And then to suddenly see how he was doing things, and it was like, brand new hobby, and it genuinely felt like a brand new hobby. But as I say, he's part of a generation that we're told weren't going to come through. The hobby always seems to be dying with particular generations. But here we are, live streaming about a dead hobby, with a pile of kits that didn't exist 18 months ago, with somebody who we told wasn't going to be part of a generation that wanted to make models. I mean, exactly right. Let's jump onto another vehicle. This one I love. This is fabulous.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. My first.
What make kit and what scale?
Yes, we'll start with that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
This is the I got this from Marcus from TMMI. This is the ICM 1917 Model T ambulance in 135th. The figures are Stalingrad 135th resin figures for French tank crew. Comes with the dog. The pigeons on the roof are the mini art pigeons. Tons in that box. Yes. And the building and base completely all scratch built. The roof tiles 3D printed, thanks to Martin. I have the files. And yeah, the little bit of ivy you see climbing up the wall, that's MiG Ammo ivy, just with a few of the leaves lightened as the newer leaves are brighter and stuff. And some of the MiG laser cut leaves just in random places around the place. The whole scene was pretty much made step by step following what Martin did. Granted, my bricks are like 9,000 times bigger than bricks actually would be, but it was pretty much all followed exactly how Martin did his barn night shift. That in that video, I do love this scene. Top shelf in the display case. This one, there's quite a story going on. I think it's just for all the chaos of world, like the war, they're just having a moment to have a chat, just a moment's break. It's just a bit of it. And the front, the hood section, which would go over the driver, that's a solid piece. And I was like, well, for one, the driver didn't fit under that. And if I did put that up, he's going to be completely covered. So I completely chopped that off. And the folded down version is just made with really thinned, rolled Tamiya epoxy putty and then painted and weathered.
I tell you that the thing, there's so much I like about this, but in terms of the color palette, is just that blue of the vehicle and the blue of the cap jumps out from all that kind of mud and horror.
Yeah.
and the canvas roof as well. And then you've got that kind of, you've got the brick colors and the tiles and everything. It's, to me, this is just a fabulous kind of demonstration of using a color palette, but again, it's telling a story. Your eye is constantly jumping from one detail to the next, but not being overwhelmed by it. It all kind of comes together in a cohesive whole. Even, and I know we said earlier on that you said, well, I'm not going to drop the edge of the diorama this time. It is perfectly level. But what you have done is you've just got the edge of the vehicle hanging over.
Yes.
Which so many people would have put that bang center, but just having that bit of overhang, it kind of like takes you out of the diorama, but you start filling in the landscape around it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does. Like I said, I'm against flat dioramas, but I thought, well, if I put a big chunky building in the corner, that might take away the flatness. Yeah, the blue was a a decision I made very early on. I didn't want to do just an olive green ambulance. That just didn't appeal to me, especially with the setting. I was like, it's going to be a very dull scene if I do it as a dark green. It wasn't going to work for me. I like to have something that draws the eye. I thought that blue, which is an MRP, intermediate blue, I think it just worked perfectly, really. And I wanted to do something that recognised the French as well. I've not done anything
absolutely.
French.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what are the figures? Where did the figures come from?
They're Stalingrad figures.
Right.
They're very, very, very nice. Just quite bad mold lines in some areas, casting marks, but the figures itself, really crisp faces, very easy to paint, and very good, nice natural pauses. Because the driver is not designed to be a driver. He was a pain to get in that position. He's actually supposed to be like led on the floor or on the roof of his tank, but it was a real task. I had to actually chop his foot off. Luckily, you can't see that. But yeah, the figures, they work well, and there's the dog and the pigeon. There's a lot going on, and for me, this currently is my favourite piece I've done. That's a vignette.
I just love it. I mean, like I say, it's every time you come back to it, your eye just gets drawn into yet another little detail, and to me, that's always what good vignettes and good dioramas do. Is that you just want to keep looking at them and taking ideas off of them. And I've got to say, those ICM Model Ts. I need the week to be kind of like 100 days long, so I can actually build all these things I want to build in this dying hobby of ours. Because ICM, like Mini Art, they do these kits, and you're just like, well, I never realised I wanted to build a Rolls-Royce armoured car, but I do now.
They are amazing. These Model Ts, there's so many of them as well. They've got the sports cars and they've got the ambulance. Yeah. So many different variants, and they're really, really nice kits to put together.
Yeah. We'll just I don't want to say rattle through, because that sounds very, very dismissive, but you know what I mean. We'll bundle through another couple here. Now this, don't tell me this was one of the kits you built in 2015, because this is staggering, and that is luckily no, this was only a couple of years ago. When was the last Cosford we had? 2019.
I built this one in 2019. This was my first model for Spencer when he was at MAI. This was the project. He was like, right, let's start you off with this. And this is what I built for him. This is the Revel old monogram 1970s JU52 148th in North Africa, guys. And it's, for its age, is an outstanding model.
We've got the voice coming over on the microphone here. That was mid to late 1990s.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was 1970s kit.
No, Pro Modeler. So it was.
Yeah.
Mid to late 1990s.
Well, it's
still beautiful, though.
Magnificent model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand why so many people have built this kit. It's very, very good. It just falls together. There's just zero fault with it. I cannot fault this model at all. Full interior, 3 full engines, amazing surface detail. It's like a corrugated shed. It's just brilliant, and it's just a really, really, really nice kit. And I'd happily build another if I had somewhere to put it.
How did you get round? I'm not familiar with how they break this down in terms of componentry. So how did you get round some of the kind of seam lines and join lines that will be falling across some of the surfaces?
Yes, so they are very well placed. Where we have, I don't want to say walkways, but with the wing section, I'm trying to describe where you've got the vertical.
You got the inner wing route. Yeah.
The panels broke up perfectly on where the actual panel would be. The panel line would be on the real aircraft. So that just disappears instantly with a bit of glue and one pass of a sanding stick. There's like no panel line at all. The roof section is a separate panel, which again falls directly on a panel line, and the leading edge of the wings is a flat piece anyway on the real aircraft. So that bit again just vanishes after a bit of sanding. You can make this model literally seamless because it's just so well designed, and where they've put the join marks, join lines, and joining surfaces. It's just I'd say a faultlessly designed model. It's really really good.
And what paints did you use for the camo and the sand on that one?
Yes. So this was one of my first models I did with MRP. So this is entirely MRP paints.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. They are I think one of my favorite aircraft paints. I've not really tried them for armor, so I can't really say it. But for when it comes to aircraft, and especially German Luftwaffe subjects, I'm straight to MRP. So it was all done. The splinter camo was applied first, and then faded. Done all that, and then afterwards is actually when I decided there's a North Africa option, and then just sprayed the camo all freehand afterwards and faded that down as well. Really, really nice model. Really, really good paints as well. And although it's a very large model, I didn't use that much paint because obviously it doesn't need thinning down, it's pre-thinned. I didn't find myself going through that much of it because I sprayed such a low pressure and really close to the model. And
the markings are all sprayed on as well, are they?
No, they're actually all decals from the kit.
Yeah.
Apart from the swastika on the tail, not included as a Revel kit. I have a sheet of aftermarket, so that was just applied at the end. But all kit decals on this model.
Yeah, in fact, I'm just going to take the image off there because any longer, I think we'll probably trip a Facebook algorithm there. So, but that's. I mean, that's 4 years into your. Oh, turn the light on here. That's 4 years into your kind of like return to the hobby, and you are putting something out like that. I've got projects here that are 4 years old that I haven't finished yet. So
when it's for a magazine or publication, it gets done. If it's for myself, it'll take years.
That's very similar actually, because I've got, as I've said on the show before, I've got me projects, and I've got projects.
Yeah.
And if they're projects like, for example, this Panzer IV, which is being built for the hobby company at some stage, I got to get on and do it. Whereas the Special Hobby Westland Whirlwind, my favorite airplane, much as I want to carry on with the work I've done on it, much as I actually want to build one of the Airfix Chipmunks at the moment, because that is just, honestly, that's something it's a kit I've been waiting for decades. But I've got no kind of end game reason for why I need to build it other than I want to build it.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then it's not going to happen, because there are other things, that need to be built that are expected to be built, and the expectation isn't from me, it's from other people. So to some respect, that's actually a good thing, because it's a good motivation. It means you focus, you get on with things. Whereas, left to my own devices, I'd just be, We'll go on to the last one for this evening, and this is actually very nice, because I've got to build something similar coming up very, very soon. And it's an Easy 8 Sherman. What kit and what scale?
1/48 Tamiya. This was for mine and Drew's 10-day build, which only I finished.
Yes. Yes, I remember that. Yes. Yeah, these challenges aren't easy, are they?
I never had a problem. I love this. I love all my models. This is as close as I've got to Spanish style armor at the minute. I'm more amazed I managed to do it in 10 days. It was it's Tamiya. It's an amazing kit. It is utterly faultless. Yeah, just I love the lighting on it. Lots of oils used on this. You can probably tell by how exaggerating the lighting is and stuff. But it's my favorite olive drab, because you can do a lot with olive drab base. You can really push it, and I think I've pushed it as far as I wanted to, and I've just really liked the result. It's obviously it's not at all realistic. It's not what I went for. It's a stylistic approach, and I just love it. For example, it's not the cupola, but it's the other hatch on the top of the turret. You can see how much that stands out because of the amount of lighting effects I've done. It's a really stylistic approach, and I love it. It's really nice. Well, for me, it's really nice. Other people might absolutely hate it, but
ultimately, the only person you have to please is yourself.
Mhm.
And we'll probably get this printed up as a T-shirt at some stage, because it's a motto, that I always tend to believe in. It's I don't care what people build or how they build it, as long as they're building something.
Yep.
I honestly don't care how people get engaged in this hobby, so long as they are engaged. And I do think that sometimes there is a sorry, looks at the control room, can I say this? They're all shaking their heads. I think sometimes that you do get an element of kind of like in most kind of activities, you do get the I don't want to use the word control freaks, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They are people who think that there's only one way that you can do things, and it's their way. And if people do things differently, no, I'm not going to go down that path. But but the point is, I see, I see models finished that I think, well, I wouldn't do it that way. But I'd never say to somebody to their face, I don't like that. Because it's their model, it's their choice, it's their time. And if they've enjoyed it and they're back and they're building more, then fine. It's it's their workbench, their rules. That's what we're going to have as a T-shirt. Your workbench, your rules. There we go. But I mean, this whole kind of like Zenalter lighting technique and everything, it's not something I've ever really done, but it is something I need to do, so that if it ends up being an absolute horror show, at least I've had a go. If it then leads to and I'm on the cusp of it at the moment, because I do on some of my armor stuff, especially with olive drab, as you say, it's a great color to play around with, is that I do mix in kind of like deck tan and stuff, and I do fading, and I think on, what was the last thing I built olive drab, I can't remember, I think it was the Sherman last year, is that I actually pre-dusted huge areas of it in kind of like buff or Tamiya buff or whatever, so that when I would come back and actually start doing the brush parts of the weathering technique, I've got a head start, because then by the time I've put down layers of grime and brush to dust and speckles and oil drips and fuel stains, that what at the beginning looked like a really kind of like, why is that camouflage? Why is large parts of that tank sand? It all suddenly gets pulled together. That just looks, it looks absolutely terrific. It's, again, seeing this, I'm thinking, okay, I gotta try that. I really gotta try that. And as you say, it's those Tamiya Shermans, they almost build themselves. What I do like on this is the chipping you've got around the turret, which to me that looks like Vallejo German black brown, but you're going to say it's a completely different color.
No, it is. Chipping's a bit big, but yeah, the color, you got it bang on.
That's a good chipping color, isn't it?
It's a very good. It's the only reason I use it.
It's my favorite chipping color. And I don't know how much these Tamiya Shermans retail for. I think they're around about the £25 mark, aren't they?
Yeah, around 20 quid-ish. Yeah, you can get them.
Yeah. I've built a couple of their armor kits, and they are fabulous. They really, you can't go wrong with a Tamiya kit most times, but something like this, anybody new to the hobby, I'd point them in a direction of a Tamiya 48 scale kit and say, have a go at that, but, and what was the olive drab you used on this?
This one was AK Real Color.
All right, okay, because they do several, don't they?
Which is obviously sounds a bit odd considering I've got an ammo logo there. Yeah, they do quite a few. Yeah, was it? Yeah, it was AK Real Color.
Yeah, I think they do like a faded, and I know they do several, because I've got them all.
Yes.
But you're right, they are fabulous paints. They dry a little bit too matte for me, and I do end up
very flat.
But no, that's just, I do hope everybody watching tonight who is stuck on projects or is looking for a bit of inspiration, I do hope tonight that what you've seen Ivan producing here is is actually, you know, firing up the you know, the enthusiasm here, because, you know, I must admit, today I woke up this morning, I was just like, oh, I can't even get out of bed. I've got no energy. And I've been sat here tonight looking at things, thinking, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to do that. I've got things to do on this Panzer. Having just seen some of Ivan's stuff tonight, I'm just like, let's get on with it. Let's go. And that's for the best reasons, because sometimes Drew and I have done this. We've come round, we've had a curry, we've had a few beers, and then we'll be watching YouTube modelling videos where we are shouting at the television, why are you doing that? What are you doing? Stop. And then immediately we have to come into my workshop and almost kind of work that off, because it's like, oh, you know, you can be inspired that way, but this is the best kind of inspiration. This is just absolute, we'll just run through them again. This is just absolute top class modeling. I mean, goodness me, you know, it's just absolutely beautiful stuff, Ivan. I just wish at your age I had a fraction of this talent, because I'd probably be better than I am now. And that's not hard. I think even the cat comes in sometimes, looks at me and thinks, yeah, I wouldn't do it like that if I was you, you know. Bit too much highlighting on that, but absolutely fabulous. We're just going to say a big hello to everybody who's tuned in tonight, and I'm just going to run through this. Take on the option. So I'm going to say hello to Dave Cad, Douglas Hunter, Lee Suter, Ian Goldstraw, Pavel Krufovic, Davian Mullen, Paul Milligan, Moz 6510 Models, Dave Mummery, Ophir Cohen, Dave Fleming. Dave says, Drew's looking good. Very good, David. See me after the show. Brian Wilton, Mod Monfils, Christian Gerard, David, Stephen Pryor, Darren McGuinness, Johan Olivier, Alan Kelly, Martin John Henry Smith, Anthony Bird, scrolls down, Greg Woodbridge, Mark Ewing, Gordon Sorensen, Kat Ludwell. Kat, hello. I'll just lean out the window and wave, seeing as you apparently are just over the hill from me. Anthony Bird, Dougal McWoogle, Claudio Saran Biondi, Andy Brennan, Juan Francisco Molinido, Ray Borman. Scrolls down. There's a lot of interaction here tonight, which is jolly good. They're all saying nice things about your models, by the way. Steve Moore, Lars Jensen, who says, there we go, fantastic Tempest. It looks just right. Darren McGinnis says, that looks superb, Ivan. Tim Campbell, hello Tim, and Stan Codling, there you go. This is fantastic modeling, Ivan. I just, you know, absolutely. Stick at it.
I'll try. Might find something else interesting.
No, honestly, Ivan, you are, you know, it is this is so what makes this hobby brilliant is you know, is the fact that you just draw so much inspiration from modelers. You know, we all try and draw inspiration from modelers around us, and like I say, watching the stuff you've been doing over the last year, and it's just like, this you know, again, this is fabulous. What a fabulous dead hobby we've got here. So, you know, so, right. A big thank you to Ivan for joining us tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure, Ivan. We would definitely have you on the show again, because we've got so much we can talk about, and we want to see more of your models as well. Beyond that, we will be back on Sunday with another oh, actually, Ivan, I will give you the benefit of this is very remiss of me, Ivan. Any other business?
No. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all your very kind words.
No, it's honestly, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. In that case, if Ivan hasn't got any other business, then we will say we'll be back on Sunday with the new show. Boy, will we have a new show. It's stop being a fabulous hobby, because there's so many new things of kind of like we didn't get in on the show on Sunday, and new stuff that's been announced or shown this week. It's just like, really, you know, I preferred the 1980s when we had about 2 kit releases a year, and that was it, you know. So on that note, thank you, Ivan. Thank you, everybody watching. We'll see you Sunday. Take care. Bye for now.